Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. My name is David Chen, and with me are
Devindra Hardware.
And Adam Quigley.
joining us today. He is the man who writes the Critic Wire blog over at IndieWire.com. He's also the co-host of the Film Spotting SVU podcast, that streaming video unit. Matt Singer, welcome back to the Slash Filmcast.
Thank you, sir.
How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Skyfall.
I'm really looking forward to it as well. Matt, were you unaffected by the hurricane and everything? Are you all good over there?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks for asking. Yeah, we're just fine. We were fortunate. We didn't even lose power actually in our area, so
That's weird. The Daily
lucky.
Show did a bit about how it was so dichotomous between some parts of New York City were total wreckage, and then other parts were everything is totally normal.
Yeah, it's a weird dichotomy over here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in any case, hope everyone is safe out there. If you're just tuning into the Slash Filmcast for the first time, you can find all of our episodes at slashfilmcast.com. Email us, let us know what you think of the show at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be using that email address this week, based on what's about to happen. So here we go, guys. Let's today we're not going to be doing any what we've been watching, no film news, nothing like that. We're just going to dive straight into our review of Skyfall.
Country.
England.
Gun.
Shot.
Agent.
Provocateur.
Murder.
Employment.
Skyfall. Skyfall.
Done.
That was from the trailer of Skyfall, the newest film by director Sam Mendes. It's also the newest James Bond movie starring Daniel Craig, and it is on track currently to become the most financially successful James Bond movie of all time. I believe it's also one of the most critically successful James Bond movies. Currently on Rotten Tomatoes, it sits at 91%. People really love this film. And Matt Singer, I thought, who better to help us review this movie but somebody who has been writing so eloquently and thoughtfully about James Bond over at the Critic Wire blog. We'll try to link to some of your pieces in the show notes for this episode, but really happy to have you on today. Now, guys, before we begin, why don't I read a couple of emails that people have sent to us about Skyfall? People have been preempting. I love how our listeners are preempting what we're going to say about Skyfall. They already predict what we're going to say and are trying to advise us on how we should handle the review.
Well, I feel like any listener, who knows your taste, Dave, would assume you would have a certain feeling for this movie, and they'd be shocked, maybe. So, yeah.
Well, in any case, here's an email from Archie, /Homecast listener Archie. Hey, so actually, I came out of Skyfall and I tweeted about Skyfall saying that I thought the third act of the film really ruined the movie. And Archie writes in, upon seeing Skyfall, my immediate reaction was to respond to Dave Chen's tweet, which pissed me off when I read it and irritates me even more now. And then he goes into some of the plot lines and he says, I'm really hoping that your /Filmcast review of Skyfall doesn't devolve into a group smackdown of the film like your Dark Knight Rises review, which is easily the lowest point of the podcast. If all you guys have if all you guys have major issues with it, it shouldn't be too hard to find a guest who loves the movie. After all, the movie has an effing 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Some critics are calling this the best Bond film in decades. It should lead to intelligent discussion, not one-sided denigration. Now,
intelligent discussion that he agrees with.
Intelligent discussion that he agrees with. Now, the counterpoint to that is somebody also wrote in with the following email. I'm going to get his name in a second, but he writes, just stomped out of Skyfall thinking, I hope the guys at the /Filmcast don't coddle this one like so many critics out there. I mean, really, despite an awesome start that had me giddy with Bond fever, it devolved into an abyss of dark hero cliches and needlessly confounding plot holes. And then he writes
just
about
out of Skyfall.
Some of the plot lines he writes here, and then looking forward to the /Filmcast, hoping you can shoot a couple of holes where it seems nearly everyone else missed their shots. So
a Bond film with plot holes?
So a lot of people, I like your running commentary on the email. That's from /Filmcast listener Josh. So we already have people saying, "Hey, hope you guys don't bash it too much," and another email saying, "Man, I hope you guys are critical where others have failed at being critical." So Matt Singer, question to you: which one of these emails are you going to respond to the best?
Well, I guess I'm going to be pleasing the first listener more because I did like the film quite a bit, and I am a big Bond fan, and I thought this was a particularly good Bond. I would certainly be my favorite of Daniel Craig's 3 James Bond films, although I know Casino Royale is quite beloved. I'm not as big a fan of that movie as a lot of other people. This one, to me, felt more like a classic Bond film than his other movies, which I like because I do like the old movies quite a bit. And it's what I liked about it primarily was the fact that it's a Bond movie. It has most of the stuff you think of when you think of that phrase Bond movie, but it's also a pretty smart film as well in terms of considering what a Bond film means and what that should look like and why we still want to see them 50 years after the first movie. And this is the 50th anniversary of Dr. No in 1962. And the movie is very much interested in interrogating what a Bond movie is at this point in Bond's career, and they use this elaborate setup, the pre-credits cold open that's in every Bond movie. In this case, is used to kind of create this scenario that gives them the opportunity to ask those kind of questions. By
Well, we should say that we are going to for the non-spoiler part of this review, we will give away what occurs in the trailer and also what happens at the end of the opening sequence of the film. So if you don't want to be spoiled on that, on those things, then you should wait until you watch the movie, like everyone else in America is doing this weekend. So, right. But we will save like bigger spoilers until a later point in this podcast. So, Matt, if you want to go into what you're referring to, you're welcome to.
Right. Well, the opening is this sequence in Istanbul, I think. And at the end of it, Bond is sort of, he's shot, he's injured, and essentially he's presumed dead. And then after the credits and all that, he eventually comes back. Shock! Spoiler alert! James Bond is not actually dead, and then he comes back. But he's not quite the same man. He's been injured, and there's a lot of talk about how he's getting older. He's losing his edge. And all these things don't necessarily mean the character so much as they mean the idea of James Bond, who is now 50 years old, and
this is nothing like The Dark Knight Rises. Let's just be clear about that.
Nothing like Dark Knight Rises at all. It might be a little bit like The Dark Knight Rises, but yeah, I mean, there was the last Pierce Brosnan James Bond, Die Another Day, was basically the same idea. You know, that was the 20th James Bond movie, and they tried to do the same thing. They tried to say, well, what is, you know, this is the 20th James Bond. What does that mean, and why do we still need James Bond? And their solution was like, well, we're just going to make him a crazy superhero, which was absurd. You know, like he skis on like he windsurfs on glacier waves in that movie. I mean, it's just
the opening of that movie. He surfs into North Korea, I think,
Yes.
and that's the one with the invisible car too.
Yeah.
He has an invisible car. There's a car chase on a big giant icy glacier. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's awful. So I kind of appreciated the fact that this movie tried to do the same thing, but actually took it seriously. And so it's a smart movie, I thought, and it's also a fun movie. It fulfills all the obligations of a James Bond movie while considering why we still want to see those obligations.
Very cool. Devindra Hardawar, your thoughts on Skyfall?
Yeah, so let me just say up front, I loved this movie, but I also loved Casino Royale. I think that's one of the best action films in the past couple decades. It's just tremendous to me. And if you listen to our Quantum of Solace review, you can hear how much I hated that movie. So this one, it's just refreshing to kind of see, like, this is what I've always wanted from a follow-up to Casino Royale, something that kind of goes a little more into the character, gives us the great action that we've always loved in a Bond movie, but also kind of brings back some of those Bond tropes and some of the things that a lot of people have always liked about the series. You know, I love Casino Royale, but that movie had a lot of almost like a certain like it just felt frustrated and angry at a lot of the Bond tropes. Like there was the do you want your martini shaken or stirred? And he's like, does it look like I give a damn? You know,
you're talking about Casino Royale right now, right?
Yeah, talking about Casino Royale. And that movie just had, it seemed, the attitude, it seemed angry at the idea of the Bond films and what Bond used to do. It's kind of amazing to me that this movie can bring in the edge of Casino Royale along with what, a lot of the Bond tropes and make it interesting. And it looks fantastic. I can't get over how good this movie looks. Cinematography is excellent.
Well, this is the first time Roger Deakins has shot a Bond movie, and it shows. I mean, in my opinion, I don't mean to preempt Adam here, but this is one of the best looking films of the whole year.
Yes.
Forget like action movies, any drama, whatever. This is one of the best looking movies of the year. And if it doesn't get nominated for best cinematography, I will be upset. I understand if it won't, but it is gorgeous.
It would be a travesty.
It's just like the lighting is amazing. The composition is amazing.
I hate using the phrase mise en scène, but in film, in film theory, this movie is all about that because the lighting, the way shots are framed, everything kind of has a purpose. It not only looks pretty, but it tells us something about the characters, and it kind of propels the narrative too.
Oh yeah, there's like just thinking back to some of the scenes from this movie that you can see in the teaser trailer or the trailer. Like you see a glimpse in the trailer of dude walking away from this burning thing in the background, and it's just amazing. It still gives me chills thinking about it.
And that one scene goes from like deep blue to like hellish fiery red, and I love that. That's the sort of thing. Like I love the little things in this movie, but beyond that, the score is amazing too. I think is it Thomas Newman?
Thomas Newman, correct?
Thomas Newman, and it sounds fantastic. And so this is the Bond movie that I thought Sam Mendes could always make. I know a lot of people were worried when he was picked as the next Bond filmmaker, but when you look at Road to Perdition, which I think is a film that's fantastic, Dave, you have my DVD for like 4 or 5 years. You still haven't seen it. So for the love of God, watch that movie, but watch in HD because I think the Blu-ray for Road to Perdition is what actually turned Sam Mendes around on the format altogether. It just looks so good, and that has I think Conrad Hall's last. That's the last film he shot. So that also looks fantastic. But it's kind of this movie is a mixture of so many great things, and it's fun, and the action is great, and it's also well written. I think also manages to bring in a lot of the humor from the Bond character and from the series that really wasn't there in Casino Royale as well. That one had Paul Haggis helping out the normal, like the standard Bond writers. It's Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. This one is John Logan. And I think he brings a lot more to the script. It's just a lot sharper. The dialogue is better. And they even make the puns, guys. I think they work. And that's the sort of thing that I find amazing about this film. And also, Javier Bardem, amazing. Also, a lot like the Joker, but we'll talk more about that later.
Adam Quigley.
This movie is so fucking cool, guys. I saw it twice already, and I dug the hell out of it. And I agree with pretty much everything that's been said so far. And I'm imagining I'll just completely disagree with everything that's said after me. But yeah, you have Sam Mendes he's classing things up here, and I really do love the way this movie evaluates the James Bond mythos in a way that's actually, I mean, we mentioned The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. Devindra mentioned The Dark Knight by referencing Joker, but in a lot of ways, Skyfall is like all 3 Batman films rolled into one. Mostly it's The Dark Knight, and it actually none of this really occurred to me on my first viewing of the film. I was just way too into the movie. Second time around, I was actually thinking like, man, I need to make like a video edit, just comparing scenes, because it is like you swap out Judi Dench with Gary Oldman, and it's kind of amazing how similar these films are, but the movie's good enough that it's able to sort of avoid falling into that trap of just feeling like a retread. It actually feels like its own thing. I can imagine a lot of other people also being like David, disappointed by the climax of the film, because it does sort of take a weird Home Alone turn that
So it's Casino Royale. It's a weird fourth act that I hope they keep up.
You would never think to use the term Home Alone-esque in relation to a James Bond movie, but that is the case here.
Yeah, and I mean, second time around, it actually I think hurt the film a bit more than did the first time watching it, and so that's actually why I can actually see where David's coming from a bit. But I don't think it's a third act problem. I think it's a climax problem. And I think the rest of the film thematically is strong enough that it's able to, I don't know, withstand the problems of that climax. I still really love everything that's happening with Javier Bardem in this film. And he is like this like amalgamation of like Joker and also Bane in some ways. And yet he makes it his own thing. He's awesome and weirdly effeminate and kind of perfect in this film.
All right, let's start with the good, guys. Let's start with the good. So I, again, really like the cinematography, love the score. The opening set piece is spectacular. It's just one of the best openings of any Bond film. And, you know, every Bond film starts with Bond doing some crazy stunt, and this movie is no different. I will say that I was a little disappointed that not just this movie, but movies in general seem to borrow their water physics from Fast Five, in the sense that, like, you can't... I'm just tired of seeing people falling into water from vast distances and surviving. It's just not
Movie
possible.
over.
It is just not possible, guys, okay? It's just not possible. I'm just going to leave that out there. Anyway,
Grind the line with Skyfall.
I thought Javier Bardem did a magnificent job here. I mean, if you just study that performance, it's like he changed not only the way he talked, but his mannerisms as well. Mm-hmm. And it's just really, really a convincing play as a Bond villain that I don't think is too over the top. It's very subtle. There's very few kind of outwardly physical elements of his performance. Like there's no huge scar visibly on his face, although there are internal scars in more ways than one. And I think he plays it quite well. Like it's a lot has been said about how this movie is kind of bringing Bond into this century and kind of thinking about like the Bond of the past is not really for us anymore. You know, Matt Singer was saying how Die Another Day, it's kind of ridiculous compared to the spy movies that we have today, compared to, you know, The Bourne Ultimatum and The Bourne Legacy, you know, great films such as that. I'm being sarcastic for the last one. But, you know, like, I do like this effort to kind of update things. And I do like that it brought in some of the Bond tropes, like you said, Devindra, like Bond, James Bond, and we got to see the origin of certain Bond tropes, which is also quite cool, which we'll discuss more during the spoilers. I do think they might have gone a little bit overboard with some of the Bond tropes. I'm not going to get into it right now, but I will say that, we get that Bond doesn't need to have an invisible car and exploding pens, but we kind of want Bond to have a little bit of some of that stuff, you know, and I think they went a little bit too far in the opposite direction in this movie. But again, we can argue about that later. So I liked a lot of things about this movie, but I was totally let down by the final act or the climax, whatever you want to call it, the last 20 to 30 minutes, which were competently shot. It's I don't think it's giving away too much to say it's a big action scene. It's competently shot.
Competently?
But I thought that or competently executed, not just shot. It's obviously really well shot. But I thought that it betrayed a lot of what had come before it. I thought that the buildup was so good that for it to be squandered on what happened in the final 30 minutes felt like a big waste to me. And
it's a pretty small feeling ending.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think it's incongruous with what's come before, because I feel like the stakes have been set up really well in the first, you know, 2/3 of the movie, that there's been sort of invocation of real world type events. I don't know how to get into this without spoiling it, but there's like a BBC report about something bad that happens. Multiple BBC reports about stuff bad that happens. The stakes have been raised so that they're really high. And then for the final act of the movie, there's like very few stakes. And I know some people like that about the final act, but for me, it was a big disappointment. And so
I think it would have worked better if they had focused, because they did try to touch on what this location means to Bond. I think if that had been emphasized a bit more and more successfully, then the ending would be more effective. But because it's not, it just kind of feels like, let's just go off to this weird tiny little location over here.
It's also mostly a symbolic ending, like everything about the location, what they're doing, the goal there, and kind of what happens there with certain characters too. It's kind of, it's weirdly a symbolic finale, even though there is, a crazy helicopter and a huge shootout. So that I'm going to talk more about that because I think it's strange, but I think that's why I find fascinating, guys. You remember Casino Royale? You remember what happened to the villain there? Like how Bond didn't even beat him. He got shot by some dude.
I remember
and
that.
That was like so anticlimactic. I kind of love that. I love that about Casino Royale because it surprised you. It kind of pulled the rug out from under you from what you expected Bond to do. And then it came up with this crazy fourth act that nobody really saw coming. I kind of love that about this movie too. But yeah, I'll talk more about that in spoilers.
There's a lot of attempt throughout all of Daniel Craig's Bonds to sort of like strip away all of these things to get at some sort of quote unquote core of Bond. And the end of Skyfall, I think, is almost like the ultimate gesture in that regard. I think it works to a large extent. I understand what Dave is saying about the stakes. It's certainly not I don't think it's a spoiler to say the fate of the entire world is not resting on what is happening in that final scene. Like, it's not like there's a villain with a death ray pointed at London, in that last scene.
Right.
The stakes are significantly smaller. To me, the thing that's wrong with that scene is there's a character that's introduced in that scene that, to me, I have no inside knowledge of this, but every gut instinct tells me was written with a very particular purpose and was written to be played by a particular person who doesn't play him in the movie.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think that what they should have done when that didn't happen, when this person, and we'll explain this in spoilers, I'm sure, but when that plan didn't work out, I think they should have rethought some elements of that ending.
Yeah.
And I think it still works fine. And I think, like you guys have already said, the photography in that scene alone is so gorgeous that it doesn't really, it could have been, James Bond could have been frying eggs in that lighting, and it would have been awesome. I think it works well enough, and I think that given the characters that are involved and what's at stake for the characters, I think there's enough there to make it really exciting and interesting. But it is, considering the bigger chase earlier in the movie, it is somewhat anticlimactic.
I'm just thinking about what it didn't even occur to me that
it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that it totally makes sense, like which actor it was supposed to be. And I'm rethinking like how it would have felt about the film had what you're suggesting actually happened. And I think like everyone would have loved the ending.
Right. Exactly.
It would have been amazing. It
Yeah.
really would have been. And that's what I mean, like I said, I don't know if they've even talked about this like publicly, the filmmakers, but I would, bet money. It's like 99% certain that that's what the plan was with that character.
Right.
And it just didn't work out. And I think they should have, maybe it was too late in the game to change it, but it could have used some tinkering after that fell through, I think.
Let me also say this, that this movie kind of fluctuates between sort of really, I don't want to say plausible, but I guess really effective use of technology, really effective invoking of technology, because the stuff that happens that's related to technology, some of it seems plausible, and some of it is quite terrifying. But then it goes from that into like one of the worst hacking scenes I've seen since the movie Hackers. and I watched this at the Cinerama and in Seattle. And then here's the thing. A lot of people in Seattle who work at Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook and wherever are really good with technology. And there was audible laughing throughout the entire theater when that scene occurred because they thought it was so ridiculous and impossible. I don't understand why we can't get hacking right in movies yet. But this movie is not the one to bring us into that era.
Because visually, people just writing out code isn't interesting.
I get that. But then why? Then you got to figure out a way, Adam. Be creative. Don't people
Not
want
everyone can be the Social Network.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like Social Network had pretty interesting use of computers.
But that's what it was about. This movie wasn't about computer hacking. So
Okay.
although technically maybe that's arguable. So.
Yeah, I think that's arguable. But in any case, that was the only other beef. Is just that it was funny because like people around me were like reacting much more strongly to that. You know, like I saw that scene and I was like smiling inwardly, like, that's silly. But
Well,
everyone,
at least the graphics, like at least it was rendered well. I think what bothered me more about the computer hacking stuff was like there are hacking messages that appear on people's laptops that just look like something out of a 1990s, TV movie, and that annoyed me more.
yeah. Why don't people use Windows? That's my question. You know, like use some Windows going on
Just
there.
can't be hacked.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think we're getting pretty oblique in our review. So suffice to say, I was very disappointed by this movie, but it's probably one of Devindra's.
Despite all those good things, like
Yeah,
let me just
you complimented everything except the ending and the
Except the
hacking.
ending.
I still don't understand what was so bad about it.
This is what really confuses me. Like I understand how like a certain scene can almost kill a movie, and I understand that, but how does that weigh against everything else the movie has going for it, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea is that if you don't have follow through, right, then how can you say that what came before was actually worth it? Like, if it's, I guess I could make the argument that, hey, okay, so the ending isn't great, but hey, watch the movie for the first 2/3. But I feel like, I don't know, man. I just don't feel good making that recommendation. I just can't bring it in myself to do that because the buildup was just so good, and I was so let down by the ending that I ultimately left this movie disappointed.
But do you think everyone else will be let down? Like I
think a lot of people were. Like I got a lot of support on Twitter. I also got a lot of hatred on Twitter, but I got a lot of support for people saying, "Man, I thought I was crazy for thinking that." And so I think it'll depend on what type of person you are, and I'm not saying that in a condescending way. Like different people will love this movie, and other people will find the ending kind of contrived and not really sort of a fitting ending to this type of
right. But remember, I think this happens to a lot of movies, right? Think of Sunshine, which is the one we bring up a lot. Now, Dave, when I remember you had a lot of issues with that movie when it first came out, but now I'm hearing mostly positive things.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because
Upon
the first
reflection,
because the first 2/3 is so well executed that it's like it makes it worth it. I don't know.
I think this one like at least definitely serves a symbolic purpose, even if it wasn't executed the way we probably would have expected it to be. Like I think the stakes thing I will definitely argue you guys about because it seems minor on screen, but it actually has global implications.
All right, so let's just get into spoilers because we're getting really, really oblique. But ultimately, I was disappointed. You three guys, you loved it, and I think probably a lot of our listeners will also really enjoy it. So
before spoilers, though, there are a couple things we should probably mention. Ralph Fiennes, who I think it was kind of weird seeing him being cast for this film because he seemed like somebody who was going to be bad or something. Like there was something really strange to him, and I won't reveal if he's bad or not, but I think is a really interesting entry into the Craig Bond universe because wasn't he at one point a contender for Bond?
That I don't know about, but
Matt
Singer.
I mean, I don't know offhand, but I mean, he certainly could have been.
I think at one point
the qualifications.
A lot of British actors were probably up for the job, so I just think he's fine. He's great there. Naomi Harris, who I really love, and actually I love for her being bad at her job, and I think that's kind of interesting. Ben Whishaw, who is fantastic in everything we see him here, I think is probably one of the most interesting things in this film too. Like I love his opening conversation with Bond, and did you mention the score much in your podcast episode, Dave? I'm not sure if you listened.
I didn't have the score for the new one
because I feel like this score is just so different from what David Arnold has been doing. I think David Arnold, he did before the Bond stuff, he did Stargate. And a couple other
correct. He's done some good work. I love Stargate's
stuff, but it feels very traditional. This one, like from the beginning, from the opening scene, it's like, hey, this is a Bond movie, and then hey, here's some electronic stuff, and I think that's just really interesting too. So, yeah.
All right. Well, with all that being said, let's move on into spoilers for Skyfall.
Now you're looking for the secret.
You're going to see this coming.
No,
But you won't find it because, of course,
you're not going to see this coming.
you're not really looking.
I have been puzzling over how it works.
You don't really want to work it out.
I have been dying to tell you. I want to tell you my secret now.
You want to be fooled.
All right, spoilers for Skyfall starting right now. Let me just let's talk a little bit more about this ending, Devindra. To be more specific, I feel like what shall we refer to the villain as? Silva, right? Is that what we can call him? I feel like he's set up so well that he is so powerful and also really skilled. And towards the beginning of the movie, like he can destroy M without actually killing her.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole final act of the movie hinges on this idea that you are convinced that he is going from just torturing M to just wanting to kill her, like physically, which to me did not make any sense.
No, it's a complex relationship because you even see that in the final scene between them too.
Right. Oh, certainly. Yeah, they definitely have a complex relationship. And the final scene, of course, which features another another Bond trope of the villain prolonging the execution of somebody valuable, only to be
destroyed
himself.
Except he actually succeeds. So
that's fair enough. But yeah, it just. I just wasn't convinced. Like, why pursue M? Why not just freaking destroy, everything around M's life in her absence?
I don't think
he's a psychopath.
Yeah, seriously.
He's a nut job.
Yeah,
like within a 60-second frame, he goes from feeling bad about her being injured to like saying like, "Oh, now let's kill each other," like at the same time.
There is that. Yeah. Kind of crazy. That's part of the Jokerness of him too. Like he definitely just wants to wreak havoc and cause mayhem in M's life. But also, I think for him, it's just basically destroying the security. I don't know, the security networks, destroying what MI6 basically stands for.
Right, but I'm saying why not just continue doing that in the final third of the movie?
Because he's crazy.
No, I guess it's like at some point in the 6-hour drive to that house, somebody might have said, hey, like, is this really the best use of our time right now?
It sounds like you're like bummed out that his plan wasn't more elaborate and it didn't have like it wasn't building towards some like crazy twist or something.
Well, I guess
mostly it was a reflection of like this guy. You think like, oh, he has some master plan here, but he's actually just fucking insane and like he is a broken human being.
And actually, he did have a master plan, guys. Did we forget the jailbreak? Did we forget him?
That's what I'm saying. It was like, oh wow, that was so elaborate that. Man, this guy must have everything possibly planned for, and then now,
that's the whole point of the final scene, though, is it, Dave? Like they literally say we got to be one step ahead of him. So I don't think he had much time to kind of plan for the eventuality that they'll all be at Skyfall. But one thing, if we were to break up the movie into certain acts, I would say that shootout is it at the Parliament or it's somewhere?
Yeah,
shoot at the courthouse.
At the courthouse, yeah.
But I feel like that was the third act. Like the villain wins basically, and then the heroes have to run away. And then all the Skyfall stuff is this strange like fourth act that kind of comes out of nowhere. And yeah, it is mostly symbolic. But you know what? Like by killing this guy, they kind of do shut down a huge global terrorism network at the same time. So yeah, the stakes were fine for me.
Matt, what were you gonna say? You're about to make fun of me, I think.
No, I don't remember what specific thing it's going to make fun of, but
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You seem upset that he has not enough insanely complicated plans. Like the one plan he has is so insanely complicated, and it doesn't quite work out. And then you seem upset that he didn't have a backup plan that was equally as complex as his initial plan.
It's like, dude was climbing up this ladder, and then James Bond caught him, and he pressed a button that sent a subway car through the exact spot that James Bond was standing at.
Radios.
So, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, I have this insanely complicated plot to... both like destroy MI6, and by the way, that was what was really effective was that scene on the BBC where they're like, oh, they exposed this agent, and then they were executed like publicly, and like that has echoes of some of the stuff that's happened in real life where we've seen terrorist public executions, we've seen agents being exposed, you know what I mean, and so. it felt like it has a lot of resonance with real life, and I was really into it. I was really like, wow, they're establishing the stakes really well. There's this kind of knock list from Mission Impossible 1, and it's like it might get out into the open, and I get that this is high stakes, and I understand like why you, and then all of a sudden it jettisons all that in favor of Home Alone Part 50.
But
Well, that's why the heroes want to go to Skyfall, is because it's away from all these places where he could have rigged, plans. That they feel like that's a place where he won't have the advantage on that level because he won't have been able to rig a subway car from
I guess what I'm saying is like the whole time Javier Bardem's character has been playing psychological games with M, destroying her from the inside out, and then her fleeing the scene just means he could continue doing that until she returns and finds like everything she loves is like gone. Like that's the way I would go about destroying it. That's what I'm saying.
Dave.
That's how
Duly noted, Dave.
Well, I do think it's worth it here to start comparing the film a bit more to The Dark Knight, and just in terms of like the story framework, and to see like what this Dark Knight did differently and why that was maybe more successful. Because in this case, actually, David, I can see where you're coming from, because a lot of this actually happened exactly in The Dark Knight. There was like the Joker started killing random people that were dressing up as Batman.
Right.
And then he dressed as a cop and actually tried to kill Gary Oldman, and which you thought happened successfully. And then the psychological games eventually paid off with him converting the city's hero into a killing machine himself. And it also had this sort of like intimate little payoff of just Harvey Dent standing there preparing to kill Gary Oldman. And I feel like that maybe that's the one thing that this movie's lacking, is another character that could sort of be perverted. I'm not saying like it has to be exactly like The Dark Knight, but that payoff I felt like was so strong on an emotional level that Skyfall just sort of, I don't know, it just sort of feels empty at the end.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about like bringing Harvey Dent into that movie was that it felt like there were way too many characters floating around at times. So this movie is all about Bond. And I think even that finale, like as problematic as it is with the Home Alone imagery, with how much it may not make sense. And there are a lot of plot holes leading up to it as well. Like, where was that car hiding? It's why are Javier Bardem's soldiers actually listening to his craziness? We could have brought up a lot of the same stuff with Joker. I think it's more important that this movie focuses entirely on Bond. Like that, the final shootout is almost like a psychological deconstruction for him, and it's all about also his mother, his maternal figure dying, literally, and then the groundskeeper, I guess, is like his remaining father figure. There's a lot of great imagery in there, which may not work if you're just looking at it as like a spy movie. This is like a really interesting exploration.
I agree with what you're saying. And actually, I wish that maybe from Bond's from the character point of view of Bond, like actually being affected by returning to Skyfall, because like Skyfall's mentioned earlier, and then he's like, I'm done. That's his word association. Done. I'm done with this entire thing, just because Skyfall brings back too many harsh memories. But I feel like that setup isn't enough. And I don't feel like they laid the groundwork for what Skyfall means to Bond successfully. And rewatching the film, I feel more strongly about this than I did the first time. But yeah, just it doesn't resonate with me the way they.
Well, that's where I think that as I was alluding to earlier, if Sean Connery had played the part of the caretaker, then suddenly it becomes this huge, massive thing about, like the history of Bond and
right,
and about like the just sort of like this idea of continuity, or at least this sort of emotional history of the character, and this idea of endurance, which is, I think, the sort of the ultimate theme of that ending. And
it's also about like where he came from, and that would also play perfectly thematically with Sean Connery playing the character.
Exactly.
Yeah. Instead, go ahead, Matt.
Right, and if Connery had been there, I think it would have filled in a lot of these holes in terms of the emotional resonance. And instead, you have Albert Finney, who's a great actor, but has no connection to Bond, and
he just stands around.
Yeah. Right.
I was really confused. Because
they were like, "Oh my God!" They make it seem like we should be really shocked to see Albert Finney there. And it's like, who cares? It's just Albert Finney. If
I was just thinking, didn't I just see you?
The door, we would have all freaked out. We would have been like, "Oh my God!"
I was just thinking
I thought Kincaid was like not an original character.
Right. That's how they treat him.
Yeah, they make it seem like it's a reveal.
Right.
And I just didn't understand. I was like, well, apparently I haven't seen the Bond film that introduced Kincaid.
Right, exactly. You're right. And I think again, it seems to me to go back to if there was this assumption that they were going to get Connery to play that part because that's the only reason to explain how they treat that character.
Interestingly, this is the second spy movie that Albert Finney started in which he plays the paternal character to a spy who's kind of broken up about his past. I'm referring, of course, also to The Bourne Ultimatum.
And Legacy. He was there, too. So it was really confusing seeing him here. Because they're like, don't you belong in that series?
Also, this movie also borrows a kind of, what do you call it? The bike chase kind of element from some of the Bourne films as well. Ultimatum. Ultimatum, and also there was a big bike chase in Legacy as well. So
yeah, but this is how you do a bike chase, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
Although what was
me of Taken 2, which had a chase on the exact same location earlier this year.
Yes,
but that one was like people running on those rooftops, and I just love this sort of Bondian gesture of like, you gonna run on those rooftops? We're gonna friggin' drive motorcycles on the rooftops. We'll outdo you, because that's just a very Bond thing to do. Is just
I think the International had its final shootout was on one of those roofs too, from what I remember. Very similar imagery.
The only thing that was distracting was anytime they cut to a close up of Bond on the bike, it was very obviously fake background. But the practical stuff where you see like stunt doubles riding those bikes from a distance, it's still very impressive.
Yeah.
So just to tie off the ending, our discussion of the ending, I think hopefully you guys can maybe begin to understand why I might have been disappointed. But I think Adam makes a good point, which is that if you think about how the Dark Knight trilogy tried to make this exact same point with Bond and kind of his broken past, and he's an orphan too, and that's what makes him angry at the world, blah blah blah. Batman, actually, the Dark Knight series actually really, that was one of my favorite elements of that whole trilogy, was how well they executed that. They devoted so much time in Batman Begins to building that up. And here, you kind of have some oblique references to it, and they expect that to be good enough. And I just don't think it is.
It kind of shows how much time we wasted with Quantum of Solace. That is a movie that adds nothing really to this series. I mean, it is a direct sequel to Casino Royale. There is some so-called resolution over Vesper's death, but I none of that ever really worked for me, and that was kind of their chance to kind of build up this mystery of Skyfall. What is it? What is Bond dealing with? That I think would have made this whole thing pay off much better. There are a couple other like Dark Knight-esque influences in this movie too. Like I think you see this a lot in the lighting and how some of the night sequences look, but also even the score at times for me evokes the James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer score. And a lot of stuff with Silva. Like he's pretty crazy, but he also has like pretty much unlimited access to like henchmen and crazy technology. There's a lot of stuff to compare between those two movies.
By the way, one thing I wanted to clear up, and this is also a little confusing to me too, was Matt, you referenced earlier how Bond in this movie is like kind of getting older, right? This movie kind of sets up this idea of him getting older and like the old ways of doing spying not being good enough. Angie Han from /film.com did an interview with the producers of Bond, and she asked like, where do you see Bond's emotional journey going from here? Actually, here we go. There's this question about him being older, and I think the producers didn't really see it that way. They saw it as this is him coming back from here we go. Where do you see Bond's emotional journey going from here? In the film, one of the themes is that he's aging, and I wanted to know, is that something we're going to see more of? And then the answer here is, I think it's not so much that he's aging. I think the idea at the beginning of this film, having been betrayed and having been shot, he's, as Ralph Fiennes says, he's lost a step. And so the beginning of this film is about him coming back. And I think by the end of the film, he's back on top, he's in peak condition, and he's ready to take on the world. So I was also confused by that because I thought it was about him aging, and it's not. And that's the thing. There's that scene when he's with Q, and he's
they say it's not, though. I think they're lying. Like, I think they're just mistaken.
Well, there's that scene with Q.
I don't think they're lying. I think the movie is not about Bond the character aging so much as Bond the idea aging.
Right.
And the movie's whole like conception is that by the end of the movie they've reasserted what makes Bond great, and if you like the movie, that's all the proof that you need that Bond still works. And it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if in the next movie there's no mention of any of this stuff, as if it never happened, because that's James Bond. That's the series. They never pay attention to the past.
Right. Adam, quickly, let me ask you this question. What did you think of the scene with Q, and specifically like the weaponry? Were you a fan of that? Are you like, yeah, this is the new Bond, simple and stripped down?
Well, the activated, like the personal gun that like reacts only to your palm print was already done in Judge Dredd, I think much better.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was like, I just recently seen that.
It was done in past Bond films too.
Yeah.
He has the same thing in one of the Dalton ones. I think in
License to Kill?
License to Kill, yeah.
Okay, so
you're talking about Dredd 3D, right? The new one.
Yeah, Dredd. Yeah. So did I say Judge Dredd? Yeah.
Well,
Dredd.
actually, both of them have that idea. Both the Sylvester Stallone and the new one have the hand-activated gun. So,
really, all I remember from Judge Dredd is Rob Schneider's in it.
Yeah. No,
but anyway, yeah. So the palm-activated thing. I mean, like, I don't know. I guess I didn't care that much, but yeah, definitely one thing you kind of hope for is cool gadgetry, and the payoff of that palm thing wasn't that great.
Yeah,
it was like
it's pretty lame.
Boom, Komodo dragon. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
the radio thing was kind of funny too, because that's one of the bigger plot holes in the movie. Aren't they going to check him for any sort of tracking?
Yeah, they did, didn't they? They did frisk him, didn't they?
I thought they did, but at that point, isn't it better to have like some sort of subdermal tracking thing, which they had in Casino Royale? Like, what? Why are we going back to a clunky radio?
Well, it's okay, Devindra. It's not like the villain is technically savvy or anything in this movie.
Yeah. What is he?
I did actually like when Javier Bardem throws that back at him.
Yes.
It's like, no fucking train. It's gonna crush you.
Yeah. I like the introduction of the Javier Bardem character, like how powerful he is. He's like scrambled all these people away from this town, and he has this like racks and racks of servers.
And that introduction scene, by the way, is fantastic because it's just one long
continuous shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Some people have complained, Matt Singer. Some people have complained that this movie jettisons a lot of the old Bond, but it doesn't jettison the backwards sort of gender politics of the old Bond. And this is particularly notable when Bond meets a sex slave in the middle of the film, then kills off her henchman, and only to surprise her with sex in the shower, and then
Did you just say surprise sex her?
surprise sex her, yes, one of my favorite activities, and then she's killed off in the next scene, and like that's probably one of the coldest things is like nobody seems to give a crap. It's like she's dead. Bond doesn't
It's also like almost like a gag. They make a gag out of it. It's like it's a waste of perfectly good scotch. It's like, I care more about the scotch than the fact that you just shot this woman that had a romantic relationship.
That whole showdown wasn't just like a showdown of guns. That was like a showdown of wits and like how crazy are you? That's the entire point of that scene. So I'm not. Yeah. I'm just saying it served a purpose, and he was definitely putting on airs at that point. He was basically trying his best to kind of contain himself because he probably doesn't want to show weakness in front of a psychopath.
That's absolutely, but then she's forgotten about for the rest of the movie.
Sure.
I guess you have this scene where, again, this sex slave is then like, again, surprise sex in the shower and then discarded and no one cares about her. And then you have another sort of plot line where a female field agent decides that, hey, like, that's not for me. The only other significant female character in the movie is like, no, let's let the men
Besides
handle.
M, you mean?
You mean Naomi Harris?
I'm talking about Naomi Harris, but yes,
I know,
right.
but you're saying the only other female character.
Come on.
M is the second most important character in the movie.
You're right, and she actually did do a pretty good job. I
think as far as Bond films go, like as much as I love Casino Royale, you have a similar, you have the desperate housewife down there that just dies after kind of making out with Bond.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as Bond movies go, I think this one kind of straddles the line between showing that misogyny just inherent in what this series is really about, which is about like a dapper British dude being a superhero while looking hot, I guess. But
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking like, yeah, actually, looking back on the movies, even going back to like Goldfinger, Bond women do end up dying in horrible ways many
There's always
times.
one that at least dies.
There's almost always one that dies over the course of the movie.
So I just
Royale was kind of unusual because it was both of them that ended up dying. So
I just felt the need to raise it. Like I don't want to spend time like if this is a situation where like maybe many women who saw this movie didn't bother them at all, and so like I'm not gonna be proxy, but I just felt like this is a complaint I've seen raised a number of occasions.
I understand the complaint, but it's almost as if, is this the first James Bond movie that you're seeing in your life? And especially like compared to a lot of them, it is very forward thinking.
Yeah, this is like really progressive compared to I literally just like this past month have been rewatching all the old Bond films, and they are insanely misogynistic, and this I feel like is actually a pretty huge step up, especially since like the Bond girl of this movie is M.
Yeah, pretty much. Like there's that Naomi Harris really wasn't it. In a lot of the older movies I was watching from Russia with Love Again, he is slapping bitches for no reason at all. Just like the opening scene is like the girl's like I want to have lunch, and he just like smacks her
on the ass.
Yeah, come on. And the thing about Naomi Harris too, I think it's interesting that it's revealed that she's Moneypenny, because that kind of fits with Moneypenny is the character who's kind of always around, always teasing with Bond. So it's kind of fun to see her being out there and teasing Bond in the field. But also, let's be frank, guys, she was a terrible agent. Do we miss the point where she killed Britain's best secret agent?
Well, she didn't really kill him because he survived.
Well, do we miss that point? Like, it's just funny because she was doing. It felt to me like she was the young secret agent, right? And she was doing a lot of things wrong. And they even did the callback to that Casino Royale thing during the casino sequence where he's like, "Don't touch your ear," which was
that was a callback
the
to
whole
Casino
beginning
Royale
thing there. I don't think she was the best agent, so it may not be a good way to write her in. I think the Bond series really needs a kick-ass woman agent to kind of to just be a good, consistent character here. The last one I can think of, the last really strong woman in a Bond movie was probably Michelle Yeoh in Tomorrow Never Dies, and that movie was not very good.
Well, don't forget Xenia Onatopp.
Halle Berry had her own female secret agent in Die Another Day. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was a pretty horrible movie.
I remember that vaguely.
But they were attempting to make her into. I mean, there was talk at the time, I think, of spinning her off into her own movie, which thankfully never happened. But
that I didn't know.
That was an attempt, at least.
Matt Singer, has the origin of the Moneypenny character ever been explained in this way in the series before?
No, not in the films anyway. I'm not too familiar with the novels, but she's always been the secretary before this, and they've always had this long-standing flirtation, but there's never been any sort of like, remember that time when you shot me? That's a new invention.
That's pretty crazy if you think about it.
Yes.
So kind of cool. Also, we saw the origin of Shaken Not Stirred in this movie. Do you guys notice?
That wasn't the origin.
No, like there's a scene. Well, I mean, I assume it's the origin because the idea is that Casino Royale is the origin of Bond. Then there's Quantum of Solace, and then this is the third. So if this is like if we're taking this as a straight up reboot, then I think you can take that to be the origin of Shaken Not Stirred. Is
when he says perfect, thank you.
Yeah, this woman is shaking the drink very prominently, and then he's like, "Yeah, that's awesome." And it's like now he's going to ask for that forever.
That's perfect.
He says, "Yeah, awesome." And he high fives.
Guys, I'm recalling the movie as best I can. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I kind of love the slow reveal of so many different like Bond tropes. Like I love, by the time we see Gareth Mallory, with his arm slung up as the new M, and then the door leading into the MI6 like office, and kind of the whole setup. It's like you're basically watching, From Russia with Love Again, just today in 2012.
What were the other Bond elements? Was there a reference to Teresa Bond in this movie? Matt Singer, do you know?
I don't recall one.
Okay, I think I've heard that referenced as well as like any other Bond elements in this movie that were introduced or highlighted. I'm trying to think.
Well, they bring back the Aston Martin.
Yeah, so what is up with that, right? Like, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to figure out where on the timeline this
Oh, that's
falls.
a bad idea.
Yeah,
That's
and
a bad
Dave,
idea.
I could see this is why the whole final scene didn't work for you, because you were basically trying to figure out in your head, wait, where do you get the car? When did he buy the car? When did he put in those gadgets? What's going on here?
But in Casino Royale, he does win an Aston Martin at a poker game.
Was it an Aston Martin or was it a Jaguar? I forget.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, we could double check it right now online, but I'm almost positive it's like the cheeky, winky 1965 Aston Martin, just specifically for that reason, because that's the signature Bond car. We could look it up, but
well, in any case, you guys have heard that Bond theory, right? That there is no single James Bond, but that James Bond is a code name passed from one agent to the next.
That has been the dumbest theory. Let me just say, because there's so many movies that kind of don't. That doesn't make sense with, and it also doesn't make sense with the book series either.
Why does that not make sense with the movies?
With the movies, because especially with Casino Royale, it feels like I don't know. It just never. The logic behind that is that you would have to have a certain amount of setup or a certain amount of like. I don't know, the fact that Casino Royale almost basically reinvented the character or created his name is James Bond. Like, it just seems like that. It never made me think like, oh, this is some guy pretending to be James Bond or who had his code name changed to it or something.
Well, to be fair, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is it's an interesting like idea. I don't think that the movies have ever given any like indication at all that they've thought that way. But to me, it's always like, if that's true, why does James Bond always drink the same drink? Why does he say the same things? Like, is that part of his spy training? It's
part
like,
of your training,
if you go to a luxurious casino somewhere in Europe, you have to order this drink because that's the drink that James Bond drinks. But to me, that doesn't make any sense.
It's all about the mythology of Bond in that he's basically like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And when he mentions that resurrection is his trick, he was not kidding. Like, he's being resurrected. It's basically like he is the Avatar and he's coming back. And these are like the minor things. This is how you can tell that he is the one, is because he drinks shaken mustard and stuff like that. That's the mythology of James Bond.
Well, okay, you guys are saying, oh, here are all the ways it doesn't make sense. But consider the fact that James Bond is played by different actors throughout the years.
My God.
What do you make of that? Also,
it's almost like they're movies.
Also consider the fact that James Bond, the person playing him, doesn't seem to age all that much, and yet time and technology and politics appears to be advancing. Despite you know what I'm saying.
That alone is wrong because what are you talking about? And by the way, the Casino Royale
case
car
closed.
It was the Aston Martin DB5. So yeah, that could have been the car he won in Casino Royale. He would have had to change over the steering wheel, I think, or something.
But I guess why would it have an ejector seat?
Because
what is
what?
Why?
I think like Dave, instead of nitpicking it.
No, I'm not nitpicking. I'm genuinely curious. I'm just being like, what are we meant to assume? Like, where on the James Bond timeline does this happen? Do you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying
it happens today. Every James Bond takes place today. Whatever today is when you're watching it.
I think what's most fascinating about this movie is that it can be serious, it can be dramatic, and can really plumb the depths of James Bond's character. And it can also have him pop out with, the Aston Martin with ejector seats and have him also making fun of the ejector seats. That's what I kind of love about this movie. It can balance all of that craziness.
All right, guys. Any other thoughts on Skyfall before we wrap things up for today?
I'm just sort of reeling. You blew my mind with the whole actor change thing.
I know. Take a while for the profundity of that thought to settle.
Game, set, and match, Dave Chen.
All right, guys. So are we good? I think
we're good. Do you guys want to see Sam Mendes making more Bond movies, or do you think they should bring somebody on again? Like, what? I feel like he is sort of perfect right now for what they're trying to do with the series. So I'm kind of worried where things are going to go. I'm worried about another Quantum of Solace.
I will say it is kind of ridiculous how much of a better director of Bond films that Sam Mendes is than Mark Forster. Just every element, including including.
I'm also thinking of the World War Z trailer, which hit this week, and
Is that Mark Forster?
that was Mark
Yes.
Forster.
Oh,
and
man.
CG waves of lemming zombies. Like, that is so threatening to me.
But yeah, I mean, even from the font choice in this movie, I was just happy that the fonts weren't stupid. Like honestly, I was like, that shows how classy Sam Mendes is, and the action scenes are actually comprehensible too. So
Yeah. It's Road to Perdition has some action from him, but it's pretty straightforward. There aren't any really super elaborate like chase scenes or anything. Freaking watch Road to Perdition, everybody, and get the Blu-ray. Watch it on Blu-ray or watch it on HD somehow because it's fantastic. Also, a really interesting Daniel Craig performance in that as well, and also a really great Tom Hanks performance. So kind of a perfect time to revisit that with Cloud Atlas and everything around. But yeah, it kind of shows like. I love Casino Royale. I can say this many, many times, but I think, director's name again.
Martin Campbell.
Yes, Martin Campbell. He's more of a workman. Like, you give him good tools, like you give him a good script, good actors, and kind of a decent amount of help, and he can give you something good. And you give him not those things, and you get, Green Lantern or
Vertical Limit.
So this is what a Bond movie looks like coming from a master filmmaker, and it looks fantastic. And I want more of this somehow.
yeah, Sam Mendes has come a long way since American Beauty. We'll put that out there. Let me go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to say, I know we've talked about how much this movie looks like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. I do think it is worth mentioning how much Christopher Nolan was inspired by James Bond, clearly, in making those Batman movies. Like, there is a little bit of a feedback loop there. Like, obviously, there's much more about the characters in the Nolan movies, but some of the set pieces, he kind of stole, ripped off, homaged, whatever you want to say. Like, when I was rewatching some of the Bond movies this month, rewatching License to Kill. The opening of that movie is the opening of The Dark Knight Rises, essentially. Yep. Bond and his buddies are in a helicopter, and they basically overpower the bad guys' planes' engines with like a winch, and take and even the same way that the plane collapses and everything is the same. So I have to imagine. And Christopher Nolan has talked about being a big James Bond fan as a kid, even more than being a big Batman fan. So I have to imagine that was not a complete coincidence that there are some similarities there. And there are other ones, too. So I just think it's worth mentioning that while this movie definitely is inspired by the Batman movies, the Batman movies, in turn, were at least a little bit inspired by older James Bond.
Even more so Inception, because you have the whole James Bond snow fortress sequence at the end of that. I think Christopher Nolan would be a fine choice and probably a very obvious choice, but I would love to see what he would do with this universe.
The snake is eating his tail, Matt. The circle is complete.
Exactly.
One thing that I kind of didn't get that I want to ask you guys about is I will say that probably aside from the opening scene, the highlight for me was the assassination scene in the high rise. Just so beautifully shot. It's notoriously challenging to light a scene where there's lots of windows or glass, and there's it's just all glass, and the neon sign in the background. This is incredible.
Did you read about how they made that scene?
No,
they basically built a miniature of the set with all the mirrors and everything, and how they were going to light it up, so they knew exactly how it was going to look once they actually put the cameras there.
Nice.
So that was all planned, and I love that the hand-to-hand fight in that sequence is just. I mean, it's gorgeous, but also the gunfire, lighting it up occasionally. I was definitely in heaven with that fight scene.
What was going on with so the idea is that guy that Bond kills in that scene was working for Silva, right?
Now I think in some of the documents you see him and M together. I think he used to work for MI6. Maybe they were running the Hong Kong section together, and so he took out that guy. Although it's strange to me that Bond would just sit there and not not try to stop an assassin from killing somebody. That was kind of weird. But it was that guy and M on certain documents from what I saw.
And then after he assassinates that guy, the people who are there are just kind of okay. There's no
I
one's
think
like,
they were. It was all part of the trap, including the girl.
I see.
Right, they
And
were
I
in
love
on
that.
the assassination.
I gotcha.
They were setting up the guy that was killed.
Seems like kind of a like why not just kill him though instead of having a dude from the building across from him kill him? That just was a little weird.
I don't know.
Anyway, just random.
You've got a lot of ideas about how psychopathic Bond villains should act. You're not really a fan of their behavior.
Yeah, whenever I look at this, I'm always thinking, how could this be more efficient?
Yeah.
Whenever I look at things in life.
Speaking of similarities to Dark Knight stuff, though, I think Silva's facial disfigurement is actually very Joker-esque. Like, once he takes out his thing, he has like this crazy, insane Joker smile almost. Yeah.
That scene when Javier Bardem is going up against M, I just kept thinking to myself, like, this is what pure acting is. Like, this is the power of pure acting. There's no, nothing flashy, just a guy behind a glass going up against M, and it's just really compelling, I thought.
There's so many things to like about Silva too, because he's not just like a crazy villain, although he is, but I love how he's also sexually threatening to Bond. Like, that whole initial sequence is kind of uncomfortable, and I kind of love Bond's retort to him, like, if in case you float this way. That scene was great. Yeah. I never thought we'd see something like that. That sort of like that, actually questioning Bond's sexuality and his manhood altogether. Although I think Lashif did something very similar in Casino Royale. He also commented on Bond's body.
Yeah, and Lashif also smashed Bond's testicles with a big rope. So, so here's a question for Matt Singer. Actually, what percentage of Bond movies have had
really good care of your body, sir?
What percentage of Bond movies have had like the villain be a former MI6 agent or former British agent?
Is it GoldenEye?
Yeah, GoldenEye. Like, is it significant? Is what I'm saying. Because
I'm trying to think if there's any others.
It's not uncommon in other spy movies either. Like, it's a running thing in Mission Impossible.
Yeah, Mission Impossible. Virtually every single Mission Impossible movie, the enemy is a former IMF agent.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not as common in Bond. It wasn't GoldenEye. Spoiler alert for GoldenEye, but I'm having trouble thinking of any other examples where that's the case.
All right, just curious because I know you're a resident expert on Bond here. So actually, let me ask you this, Matt Singer. You wrote an article. Let's close off with this. You wrote an article that was like, if Daniel Craig is your favorite Bond, are you really a fan of Bond? Given that there's been dozens of movies, and Craig's Bond films have been atypical, right? They have not been like most of them. Mm-hmm. I mean,
you mean of the two? What?
Well, no.
Now most of them have been liked.
No. What I'm saying is, Daniel Craig has had 3 movies where he's been Bond, but they have been markedly different than the previous, few dozen Bond films. Mm-hmm. So I guess, like, where do you come down on it, Matt? Do you think that these movies are really that different from the previous films, and how do you like them compared?
Well, they are different in some ways, but I think, first of all, I think Skyfall is the most like the older Bonds. It mm-hmm. very deliberately is almost, when the very end of the movie is, as we've said, like there's there's a guy named M in an office that looks like the old office with his, and Moneypenny is there, and they've almost like returned to the very beginning. It's almost like the very first scene of the very first Bond movie, in a sense, as if it's like concluding some sort of epic 50-year cycle of films or something. But yeah, it was something I was just thinking about because we at my blog, the Critic Wire blog, I do these weekly surveys. And I asked people, like, what's your favorite Bond movie the last week? And I was expecting, certainly, Daniel Craig to get a bunch of votes. But I was sort of surprised that he was the most popular response, like even more popular than Sean Connery, even more popular than Goldfinger. Casino Royale was, like, the number one response. And I just found that kind of interesting because his Bond movies are sort of defined by the fact that he is not Bond. It's like he is being the un-Bond, the anti-Bond. Mm-hmm. Like everything about him is he's defined by his lack of Bond qualities. Like if we look at the other guys that have preceded him, he does things differently in almost every way. You know, he doesn't make jokes when he kills people. He doesn't. We've talked about he still sleeps with some women, but like there's a lot less of it in his movies than there is in the previous ones. You know, the movies in general are more serious. What was that?
I was just going to say, Bond is such an outdated character. That's why I think people are responding to the Daniel Craig incarnation of him, is because, yeah, like in the first few Bond movies, I mean, Bond is slapping women on the ass and he's telling them to go away because men are talking or man talk.
I'm on the phone. Don't bother me.
Yeah, it's like, I'm hungry. He's talking to, like, he's just so disrespectful to women, and that's like half his character is that he's disrespectful to women.
Right, and that's sort of the ultimate conclusion I came to. Was it was sort of wasn't like I was accusing someone, if you like Daniel Craig the best, you're not a real Bond fan. I was more just sort of like musing out loud about it, and what I kind of came to the conclusion was basically exactly that. It's just that the franchise sort of values, you know, like being contemporary above everything else, and like we were joking before, like where is this movie in the timeline? Well, it's now. Like every Bond movie. That's what it's about. It's about being contemporary, and whatever is out there in culture is sort of Bond movies always try to reflect it. And so, yeah, he's some sort of more, you know, this reflection of maybe a more serious time. And I was kind of drawing parallels between his like Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace with sort of the post 9/11 kind of moment where technically the first post 9/11 Bond was Die Another Day, which was the last Pierce Brosnan movie, and they tried a little bit to like hint at it a little bit where he gets like
he gets tortured, right? Like the torture sequence is that title sequence, which is strange.
Yeah, he gets tortured. There's sort of like almost like a suggestion of like like water. He gets like water tortured and things like that. But then the movie just becomes, you know, a giant cartoon. And it seemed like at the time their thinking was, well, you know, the world has changed, but we still want there to be a really, you know, we still want pop movies. We still want, you know, big, broad entertainment. And then they basically completely reversed themselves with the next movie, with Casino Royale, where they were like, well, actually, you know, when real world bad guys are doing things that look like things Bond villains would do, maybe we need to take this a little more seriously, and that's why you have this sort of much more serious Bond, and it does fit the period. Now that we're moving away, you know, it's been now 10 years since that, it does seem like they're beginning to maybe course correct again a little bit in the other direction, and trying to consider, well, how do we keep it serious but also acknowledge that maybe we don't need to be quite so serious. Maybe we need to bring in some of the things that felt a little outdated. How do we do Q now? Now he's more of a computer hacker. Maybe the computer hacker scenes are ridiculous, but they're at least trying. You know, they're right. Making attempts to be contemporary. Right. So I think what Adam said, it was a much shorter version of what I'm saying. He was much more concise about it. But yeah, it's just they're reflections of contemporary pop culture. They never anticipate trends, Bond movies. They always reflect them. They always try to grab onto whatever's popular. You know,
well, with the exception of Madonna's "Die Another Day" soundtrack theme song, that they probably anticipated a little too much that type of music would be thought of as good. But aside from that, you're right, and I think that the music, like I just said, is also like a reflection. Like you always have big pop stars of its day doing the theme song, and that's certainly no exception here. So
we should. I also just want to give a shout out to like the credit transition with like Bond in the water and then getting pulled down, and then Adele's song taking over. It's just like amazing.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, and it was the theme. The opening credits were a return to form. I actually thought that. I mean, Casino Royale, that opening credit sequence, it kind of sucked, and it wasn't really as good as some of the better credit sequences of Bond past. So I'm glad to see a return to form in like suggestive imagery of women in whatever the hell setting that Bond happens to be.
It's also meaningful. Like Casino Royale, I actually kind of like, but Quantum of Solace, you guys remember, that was just like nothing, and the song there also told nothing either. So,
well, to be fair, it is hard to incorporate the phrase "Quantum of Solace" into a song.
Maybe they should have rethought that at the script level. Yeah.
So anyway, all right, guys, are we good? Let's wrap things up.